graphs popping up and everything like that. And
yeah, no, that's too much.
There's spinning dials behind my head and everything else. I was like, that is completely perfect just to annoy Kyle to all out.
The newsroom is good. If it's not the newsroom, I like it when you just had a solid color.
Yeah, the color was pretty good. I don't know. It accentuated my eyes.
Me, I just have a bunch of bobbleheads in the background.
Yeah, bobbleheads would be good too. Well, Ted did have a really good idea, is actually get a green hat. So eliminate the green screen, get a green hat, and put emoticons on my head every week. So
yeah, or run video on your hat.
Run video on my hat. That'd be awesome. Like
I guess I'll go with this.
Oh, there you go.
we have a guest speaker today.
Hey everyone, welcome back.
I'm out of this world.
Episode 111. Appreciate you all joining. As you can see, we are joined by Bill Hartzer. If you don't recognize the crazy spaceman hat, Bill is a brand ambassador for Majestic here in the United States. They fly him all over the place. He wears this funny little suit and gets to go to conferences for free. It's a lucky gig, I think. We also are accompanied by Ted. Bill, Ted, how you guys doing this week?
Doing great.
Yeah, doing awesome.
Awesome. Interesting news came out this week. The updates was the thing that everyone was talking about. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and fire it off. Just as a note, we're going to round this out with Bill, and he's going to talk about expired domains, how he finds them, etc. We'll talk maybe some about some site audit stuff, because he's got really good ideas on site audits and how to leverage those. And then Bill is actually doing an AMA over on Reddit. The link is on my post. You can find that link in the description. Save that. And if you have questions for Bill, ask him over on his AMA. Obviously, you can ask some here, but keep your good questions for the AMA so he can take some time and give you well thought out answers. And it helps Bill out too. So with that being said, let's do the first post. I always preach about using PPC to do keyword research and check the traffic and verify the numbers for search volume. Bill, I don't know, are you still doing that? As I remember, you were a practitioner of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, it really comes down to, actually, I like SEMrush and some keyword tools to look at data, look at competitor sites to see what they're bidding on. Because if they're bidding on a keyword, obviously, if they're paying $10 a click or more, they've already actually themselves, they've tested that keyword. So, if they're willing to spend $10 or more, $5 or more per keyword, then it obviously converts for them. Yeah. So it might, at least it's worth it to, test those keywords out.
Oh, nice. I never even thought about using that, leveraging SEMrush. I do that a lot, but in that way, I just haven't thought about that method in quite some time.
Well, I mean, even Google's, keyword tool, keyword planner, any other, tools. I mean, but SEMrush actually does have that keyword data, and they have the the PPC, the actual ads and ad copy as well. So yeah, it's pretty easy to pull.
Which are really good if you're doing title tags and you're stuck on title tags. Pull up SEMrush, look at the ads, and use the headlines. There's your title tags.
Yeah, one of the first audits you do with an online retailer is just go through their product names and their category names, make sure they're all terms that get organic search volume. Just simply going from 0 search volume to something site-wide, page by page, is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, it just tells you if you're putting all your effort into the right damn thing. The famous example I give is we were doing ductless heat pumps, and the client wanted to rank for ductless heat pumps, 14,000 search volume. Google said it was the greatest thing ever. But when you add in his actual service area where he wanted clients, and the only place he would take clients, no one searched for that at all. And we didn't want to know that if we hadn't used PPC. And this article here gives you a lot of statistics and data to help you with your selling points and why you should probably start kicking that in. especially if you have clients that are, resistant to it. And the reason is you want to roll this. Obviously, you want to roll that PPC charge into what they're already paying you. The other way you can do it is kind of estimate $150 a month for PPC when you're giving your quotes, and you turn that into some actionable data, and two, a quick, easy way to get some leads, especially for those service area clients, depending on how good you are with PPC. So this is a good post to, again, sales points in here and just some more reasons why you should be using PPC for your SEO. Next one is a Matt Southern over at Search Engine Journal. Google invalid URLs should return 404s and not 500 errors, server errors. I don't even really think this was a big deal. Have you guys seen a lot of this? I've done a lot of audits and I haven't seen.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
It's very important. If you're doing that, you're inflicting pain, because Google will de-index your website for 500 errors. They'll check back every 2 to 4 hours to see if they get resolved. But oftentimes you'll come back at a lower position than where you left. And the 500 errors is actually the basis of a negative SEO attack called a Google bot interruption attack. Mm-hmm. And it's how evil SEOs can knock out stores for Black Friday and cause significant harm. Right. And so, you definitely do not want to give Googlebot a 500 error. That's a terribly horrible idea.
So, Bill, when I do my audit,
on that same note, what about actually a site that I've seen plenty of them that never give a 404, no matter what URL you put in? So, even if I went to a site and that always gives a 200 okay on even domain.com/whatever 12345. Right?
Yeah, Google starts referring to those when they appear to be duplicates of, like, the homepage as a soft 404. It gets a lot more murky when you redirect to an inner page. But then again, Google, will also tend to only show one copy, the highest page rank copy of a page. So if it appears to be duplicate pages on Google's side, they'll reduce it to the best PR1 and filter the rest. But we're getting close to the basis of how you use expired domains to harvest backlinks.
Yeah.
Sure. It kind of goes back to years ago. I mean, we're talking about 10 plus years ago. Back in the 2000s, we created sites that based on the URL, it would actually generate a page. And so, they were great for buying when you bought expired domains and actually had a site. You didn't know what URLs were requested. And so, so whenever there was a page, basically we put this site builder, and on the fly it would automatically create from an expired domain, whatever URL was requested, it would look at the URL and take words out of the URL and apply those to H1 tags and to content and do we actually had a database of literally hundreds of thousands of RSS feed content. And so literally when it would, you'd see, would request, domain.com/keyword, it would actually take that keyword and do a lookup from the RSS feeds and do a search and create a page of unique content based on RSS feeds that we had, put in the massive database. And so that's, kind of going towards expired domains, but where what would happen is any URL that's requested would always deliver a 200 okay, the server header. So it was never any 404s.
Yeah,
and we got to a point where I think Google was actually requesting just weird URLs just to check to see if you actually delivered a 404.
I love what you just described there. That's like, artful black hat, because you basically built a large website And you don't even know what the website is about until the traffic arrives.
Yes, exactly. It was yes. And so that we were doing that, back in, 2003, 2004 timeframe. And in fact, I mean, I could describe, basically that there were times where, based on, this system that we had developed, and my, developer I know had developed, is that basically based on the expired domain, if it was a page rank 5 or higher, it would literally automatically buy the domain and configure it on the server, and then apply a random template to it, and pull the content. And when the site was up and the domain was up on the server, it would literally send a text message saying, "Hey, you have a new site that we acquired." There were some days where we were grabbing, 20, 30, 50 to 80 domains a day with sites, and putting those up, all based on page rank and link data.
Nice. We need to revive that script. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's still out there. I mean, I'm sure I could dig up a copy. It's still available.
Yeah, my hat's dark enough. I'm still willing to try that stuff, because what was old is new again. And I remember Bill saying that 2 years ago at a SMX West conference. We were having a drinks on the rooftop while he was in his spaceman suit, and he said, "What was old is new again." That's why a lot of things that are working now that Google supposedly fixed, and that'd be nice to try that out. If Ted and I were talking with Roman over at NFG, and how to take sites, a PHP site, and send some backlinks and get that traffic, and then the pages are generated. So this is right aligns with that, except you've actually used content. Heck, if it's buying domains and all that other stuff, I just plug that in and just take that traffic and use it where I need it. So I like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned what is old is new again. Back these strategies. If you think about it, we're the Google employees and the engineers that are working on the code right now. We're not working on that code 10 years ago. The guys who originally were working on the Google code, or even Bing code back in early 2000s, they're not employees anymore. They're long gone. They're retired on sitting on a beach somewhere, or they're Matt Cutts working for the government now. So there's been a whole shift, and so you have to understand that. I think one of the thinkings is that now you've got a whole new breed of Google engineers, and they look at old code and say, well, why is this particular factor, or why are we checking for a certain age from an expired domain or something like that, and it's might be something they're checking for, and they don't think it's appropriate anymore, and so they'll not check that little thing now, and whereas they used to. And so a lot of these, I guess you could call them black hat holes, or holes in the algorithm, or a lot of those things that we used to do in the early 2000s, are now working again, because maybe it's they've taken it out of the code, or maybe they're not looking for it anymore.
Yeah, well, I think the way you explained it was, the new engineers see the old code, they're like, "Oh, those old guys know what the hell they're talking about." They delete it, not understanding what it fixed, and it creates that big problem again. So
yeah, attrition is an SEO's greatest ally.
Yeah, for sure. The next post is conversion mapping and how they go hand in hand with SEO. This is kind of, I think a lot of you have already seen this, but I like putting these kind of posts up because it throws a reminder in. But basically, it goes to the conversation of what do you put first, your optimization for search or your optimization for conversions. And this kind of gets you into thinking how you're going to do both. In particular, how you're going to target a specific audience after you use some of your analytics and stuff to determine who is really coming there and who's converting for you. You can tweak the pages, keeping SEO in mind for optimization, and get twice as much money for bang for your buck. So again, this is just a really good information and reminder post. You guys probably skip it if you don't need it. Next is a niche list. This is actually pretty good. I use this to build a couple of my research niche information setups that I'm creating now. But if you're stuck looking for a niche that you want to delve into, then this is a good topic. In particular, if you're looking for to expand out, like I did a lot of local and national SEO campaigns for clients, but I want to get back into affiliate stuff more. And this kind of helps me do that. One of the things that I kind of don't disagree on, and maybe Ted and Bill, you guys can weigh in on this, is people tell you, find the niche that you're interested in. My philosophy, though, is that's kind of flawed, because that niche you might be interested in might not have any money, or maybe no one else is interested in it. Or it's just an informational niche, and then now you're blogging for a year for no reason whatsoever. So,
yeah, but it comes down to, yeah, I mean, I guess more that it's whether it may not have traffic. I mean, if you have traffic, you can somehow make something from that traffic. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I think it's more about the fact that, that you may not have the traffic, but I mean, but even if that niche, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, even if that niche, does not have a lot of traffic, you could just, put, if it's a WordPress site, you could put it behind, put a paywall there and maybe get, 100 subscribers, even if it's, if you're creating that content, if it's super, super, super niche. So I think there's still options. I mean, there's still some options out there. And yeah, I mean, at the same time, even if you have traffic, well, okay, then sell links on this, monetize it by selling links on the site.
Well, and there's two sides to it too, because like my favorite YouTube video of all times has 13 views on it and was made by a high school math teacher. And so the value of the content and the value of the traffic are often opposing forces.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're going to find somebody that's interested in underwater basking weaving, but I wouldn't make even if I was good at it, I wouldn't do a blog on it. It's just boring.
But so one thing I'd like to mention before, if for expired domains, okay, one of the things is that I have found, and I haven't, I don't think I've ever really told anybody that I look for this, but basically the concept is that, bloggers tend to get burnt out pretty quickly. Okay. So, it could be, let's take mommy bloggers, for example. Well, if you do a search for the top 2019 mommy bloggers or 2018 mommy bloggers, you're probably going to find, a list of the, top 50 or top 20 mommy bloggers, and those sites will be up and running. But let's look for the lists of the top mommy bloggers from 2015, from 2013, from 2010. Because if you look at the top list of influential mommy bloggers for 2010 or 2009, of those 20, about 18 of those sites are going to be expired domains, because those mommy bloggers did it for 6 months, did it for a year, did it for maybe 2 years at the most, and then basically just gave up because they thought they could be, have 100,000 followers on Instagram, and they could have, all these product endorsements and make money from it. They just got burnt out on it. And so those are going to have a lot of links, and potentially some traffic. So so when we're looking for expired domains, and you mentioned blog niches, it's not just, maybe mommy bloggers, but there's blogs on all sorts of topics like that where we can find traffic and find expired domains like that.
Nice. Good tips. Good tips. Let's see. Next one is Search Engine Watch XL. It's a fuzzy lookup for SEO. I don't have Windows, so I couldn't test this out. But basically, you use this actual program here. It's called Fuzzy Lookup Download, and it'll add in so that you can use that to find, migration issues with your URLs and maybe 404 pages, etc. Again, I don't have Windows, so you guys can check that out if you like it. It's a good tool, I thought. And another tool is from Matthew Woodward. This one's getting a little bit of hate in the space, but basically he's giving you a way to kind of try to see if Google manual reviewers are looking at your website. I know Jerry West tried it. He said he did it on like 15 sites that he had manual penalties on at some point or another, and used it. And maybe 3 or 4 gave the results according to what Matthew is pointing out in this article. On the flip side of that, Jerry gave it to one of his clients, and then he got to see where the manual reviews came in. So I'd go through this yourself. Again, Matthew writes some really good articles on how to use tools and stuff. So go in here. There's a video to show you how to use it and see if it works for you, and make your own opinions on that. It's pretty good. And again, I like reading Matthew's stuff, and it's not often he's coming out with some new stuff because he's really busy. But I think this is a good one.
Well, what's so interesting about it is not necessarily the method, but the concept of putting a website out there to get manually reviewed on purpose for the sake of looking at how that review happens and pouring through the logs and reverse engineering the manual review process for clues about what goes on. And that kind of hacking, I mean, that feels like social hacking of the manual review process. And so academically, that's a really interesting topic. Like, I haven't heard anyone put that out there before, but it kind of sounds like they've touched on it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone do it either. I think that's why he's getting some hate, because it's a new idea and concept. But I think when you're looking at it in the way that you just mentioned, you can probably save yourself a little time if you're, like we used a Google quality guidelines as part of our first look at websites. If I have that information that Matthew helps put out, maybe I can save myself some time on some of those things and look specifically at what the reviewers are looking at. But again,
do you think though that, we're talking about manual reviews as far as manual actions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that there's been controversy in the past whether or not actually Google is manually reviewing, a site? I mean, Google has said that, yes, they, there is somebody who actually looks at the site and gives the manual action. But, as far as the process goes, I believe that there's something that puts up a red flag that tells Google to tell somebody, where somebody actually then has to manually review it. And that came up in me when I've cleaned up manual actions in the past, that I have seen manual actions being given that are just, there's no way that somebody manually looked at the site and said, oh, we're going to give this manual action. I mean, it just did not add up.
Yeah.
There had to be some kind of automated system that sent up a red flag and then, and gave the manual action. And then then when you responded to it, then they had somebody manually review it.
Yeah, and that's why this is such a cool concept. Like, it just is begging for somebody to set up a manual review honeypot to lure Google into manual review and then to run analysis on the web logs,
Yes.
and the triggers, and all of that. And that would be a killer case study on manual reviews.
I'm sure people have done that in the past, and it's just not, they haven't released the info. Because if you did have the info, it's all, even any kind of black hat stuff is all coming to, okay, how far close to that line can you get without going over it, and it's all about that, that mysterious line. And so the more information like that you have, the better, you can get how close you can get to it without crossing over it.
Yeah. I don't mind crossing over it completely, as long as you don't get caught.
Yeah, exactly.
The next one is the Google Webmaster Hangouts. You guys seen this marketing syrup? Christina does these nice roll-ups. Again, if you've watched any of these, some of these episodes can be pretty painful. So go over here and give her some credit. She got 17 different points in it. She actually split it up with times again, so that's really cool. It'll help you get through. One of the things I saw is Google prefers JSON-LD. Used to be before, Google was always talking about using microdata for your schema. Now JSON-LD seems to be the preferred method for Google. I've always used JSON-LD just because the markup never displayed on the website. It didn't change the fundamental look of my website. But I think it's pretty cool that they're just acknowledging, hey, just use JSON-LD now.
Yeah, it's a huge specification to implement, so it's a big part of what's happening in Cora 5. But yeah, I agree. It looks like JSON-LD is the winner.
I think maybe that goes along with the Search Console too, because I don't see the data highlighter. That hasn't popped up yet in the new version, unless you guys have seen it.
Yeah, well, the JSON-LD spec has the most entities, so it's somewhere like 200, 225 entities. So it's just a huge one to code out whenever you want to support it.
Yeah. Shoot. Next one is some link building tips from local business experts. I think this is pretty cool. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I've had, oftentimes you get a client, particularly in local, they already come jaded because they've tried freelancers or they've tried other agencies and getting results. And then when you start having a conversation about link building, they get a little bit nervous just because while they're getting screwed by that other agency, they're over on the internet learning, becoming link building experts. With that, this is actually a good post to kind of model some of your objections behind, and just look and see what about links and how to leverage them a little bit more. Are they useful to you, etc. In this case, it's just going to indicate where your competition's at. I mean, most of them are, they're talking bad about links, but at the same time saying that they're going to use them more. And you can see that in a couple of these expert insights things where they have the topic and then the expert is contradicting the whole line of questioning there. So check this out. It's really good fruit for thought stuff. I don't want to dig too deep into it because that's a rabbit hole. We could have a whole show about that.
Yeah, it's survey data. It's interesting. You should consider what it says, not necessarily believe what it says.
Yeah, it's a good testing. I think it's an opportunity, like one of those testing articles. Here's a whole bunch of stuff, and then go test that stuff and see, maybe someone's right and someone's wrong. So we'll see. Here's the big news, Bill. I'm sure you got a lot of questions with your audits and stuff and your client business and talking to people, et cetera, probably at PubCon too. This update that just came out. And Google actually named it themselves, the March 2019 Core Update. I know it's really early to make subjective, this is what it was and stuff, but what kind of stuff have you seen in your site's database to indicate what that may or may not have done?
I've been tied up with some other projects the past week, but so I haven't really had time to really dig into it like I should. But what, but for the clients that I have been watching, that there was one in particular, that was hit basically by the medic update, and, it was called the medic update. And it turns out that that site basically lost 80%, 80% of the traffic. And so they were only, getting now, that was back in August. And in fact, that actually, they have a keyword.com domain. And basically they were always ranking for their keyword, which is their brand. They basically, it killed a lot of their brand traffic back in August, but now all that is back, and even more than it was, and even more traffic than they had before that. So I think it's in that case, this was a video game site, and they just they had nothing to do with any kind of health, anything. It was just a free game site. You go on there and play free games, uh, and they actually are doing really well. It seems like it's a complete reversal of that Medic update.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that either. I've heard some other people say that they think that this core update reversed everything or most of everything that happened in the Medic update. It's hard for me to say what changed and what didn't, only because the losses that we saw as a result of the last few algorithm updates all reversed themselves as they continue to test this main release. So if anything, I actually came out on top or broke even for most of our clients. We had one client, we just stopped doing a lot of link building, and they stopped doing content, etc. So those are combined, and we saw a drop with them, but that could be related to the update, or it could just be related because their SEO is a bit stagnant right now. So it's a little hard for me to say.
I try to avoid the reversal claims because there's usually not evidence to support it. The way I see it, change is change. Let's find clues as to how it changed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I know you tracked that one term. It was a DUI attorney, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And we've seen that on White Hat versus Black Hat when I was presenting over there. He used to show that. I've actually starting tracking more terms just to kind of get a little broader view of it. Hopefully that plan actually works out. Unfortunately, I didn't have it set up before this update, so I can run a comparison with the core factors. But the next one, I got it, hopefully.
Yeah, having a good history of data is an important concept in modern SEO. If you don't have a good archive of your past SEO, it's difficult to figure out the changes.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, even at a minimum, you should be, if you've got Google Analytics, and you make a change to your site or any kind of change, you should be recording that, at a minimum, even for small, tiny sites, local clients where I typically will go and not make a lot of changes to their site. I may, make a change them to a new theme or something. And, or make some small other changes. At a minimum, I record those in Google Analytics as as a little citation or a little note, so that I can go back to the analytics and say, hey, when did I submit a disavow, or when did I do this or that, and just compare the dates. I mean, that's at the minimum. Obviously, I guess the maximum would be, having Cora data. But, everybody at least should be recording something at a minimum in something like Google Analytics.
Yeah, your minimum idea is actually excellent advice. And it could be very simple. You just have a spreadsheet that has dates and a description of events. And those events can be things like the weekly email went out, the web server went offline for 4 hours, we launched a redesign, we did an HTTPS migration, and you just have these events and dates. And what you do when you look back later is you overlay those events on your SEO histogram. Yep. And yeah, it's insightful because you see which events trigger changes and which don't. And yeah, that advice is spot on.
If you're an SEO Power Suite user, I use Rank Tracker, and it's got built-in notes, so you can tag the day and put your notes, and it'll give you lines and everything. So,
Yeah, and
it's
SEM
one way
Rush
to
has that
implement that.
feature also. You can put in data there.
SEM Rush does too. Awesome.
And if you're worried about negative SEO attacks, one of the best things you can do is log complaints and issues from your network administrator, because his bad days, I guarantee, will be bad SEO days too.
All right, this is the last post. I'm just going to show this for a second so you guys can see it. Again, if you want to use the AMA, and I invite you to and ask that you do, for Bill on Reddit, the link is on my website. You can find the link to my website in the description. I know that's 3 steps, and I'm making you work for it, but I want the traffic too, even if you're just going to bounce and go somewhere else. But this is Bill. How did you get approached to actually start this AMA, or did you approach them and say, "Hey, SEMrush, let's do this"?
Actually, I have no idea. Actually, just through contacts and networking, they just say, "Hey, we're gonna, do you want to do an AMA for SEMrush?" And a couple weeks ago, just through a contact. So I think that a lot of this. I mean, even down to any media attention and so forth that you get. I mean, any kind of interviews or anything. I mean, it comes down to networking and I mean, and knowing somebody. I mean, and the contacts.
Right.
I've been on CBS News because I know a guy who used to be a reporter who I met, at a SEO meeting. So, hey, it comes around.
You're also
So,
a famous actor, aren't you? You're in the Actors Guild for your Skittles commercial.
Yep.
So I know you best from Expired Domains. You actually did a presentation for SEO Rockstars. Currently, you're hosting the weekly chats over at the Search Intelligence Agency, is it now? Or or association. What I guess we talked about this before, and it kind of brings it in is this is a really broad question. I don't expect a complete answer, but what are maybe your top 3 things you do when you're evaluating an expired domain and whether you want to use it? And in our case, I'm just going to stick to the link building thing. Typically 301s. If you're going to use it for a 301, what are the top 3 things that you look at a domain and say, "Hey, let's do it"?
Yeah. So typically, there's a couple. There's basically 2 different ways. I mean, you have to find the domain first off, and that's probably the most difficult part. And it is some of it involves actually a lot of luck because you actually happen to be searching and a particular domain is expired and or coming up and so on auction, and they might be only there listed on auction for 10 days, and so if you're not searching every single day, you might miss it by a good domain by a day. So some of it is luck, but you're using stuff like Fresh Drop that basically aggregates all the domain auctions at one place, that you can identify a niche or a target niche. If it's if you're looking for an SEO domain, and links like that from former SEO agencies, you would look for domains that end in SEO because digitalleader.seo.com and all these different SEO agencies that that went down, didn't, that went, they closed up shop, a couple years ago, and their domains are now expired, and the SEO links are there. So, you kind of look for a keyword that, and in typical cases ends in with that domain. If I'm looking for a marketing domain, or digital agency, you might find a domain that ends in marketing. A lot of companies use their company name, so and such marketing.com. And so you kind of narrow it down to a pool of domains. Then essentially the next step is to somehow, put a value on each of those. Like I like to use the domain checker, bulk link checker over at Majestic. So basically you can drop in, a list of domains, and it will just tell you the high level link data, like, trust flow, citation flow. Are there links from, what different topics and so forth? How many, edu backlinks? How many government backlinks? How many links from Class C blocks? So you kind of narrow it down. I may end up with, a dozen domains, and then it's the manual checks. It's the, going to Google, see if the domain is still indexed, seeing what pages are still indexed on the domain. So that's kind of a pretty good distinction of whether or not that domain is still indexed in Google or whether it's not been. Because if it's still indexed in Google, that's a better chance that it's, that it's still, have some potential there. If it's completely gone from Google's index, then Google knows that it has expired or hit pending delete or so forth. And so at that point, so there's kind of the two distinctions. There's whether or not that domain is still indexed in Google, whether it's not indexed. If it is indexed, most likely it's going to still be, like in a GoDaddy auction, where the create date of the domain does not, when you buy the domain, the create date doesn't change. It actually, GoDaddy just transfers ownership to you. And so it's not actually a domain that's dropped. There's kind of two ways to deal with, either you can revive a domain that's completely dropped and gone through the whole expired domain process, or you get a domain that's either on Namejet or GoDaddy where you actually buy ownership of it before it actually expires. So then, so that create date and maintaining that is probably, is key here.
So what you're saying is, if I buy it in an auction, I'm buying essentially from the create date, not from the time that someone let it go.
Yeah. So what happens is when you buy it from a GoDaddy auction or a Namejet auction, it's pre-release. And so it actually is not, it's expired, but it's not actually gone through the 90-day drop process. So what has happened is that when you get that domain and you look up on Whois, if that domain was originally registered in 2002, then it'll actually on Whois, it'll actually it'll have your information on it, and it will have the 2002 date on it. So it will look like you bought it in 2002 originally.
So it maintains all its age and everything. That's cool.
Yes. And so basically those type of domains, those are still in Google's index. They're still in the index. They're still in Bing. And they still have some traffic, even though there might be a landing page that says it's expired. I think that's the true distinction. Those type of domains, you can almost instantly, when you get those, if they're still in the index, you can basically redirect them right away. Or typically, you can just start using them right away.
Now,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, here's a question for you, and it comes up a lot. Like, people ask me all the time, is domain age a factor? And what I often tell them is, I don't think it is. I think it's closely related to a factor. I think how long a domain has been indexed is actually the thing. The reason I suspect that is because I used to have access to hundreds of domains that were registered in the 90s, but never used as websites.
Yep.
And when I would test those, they were no better than a brand new domain.
So what I do suggest, though, is that where it comes into play, it kind of interesting, is that if you have a brand new domain, say you make make up a new brand, that's just a fictitious brand, and you have to register a brand new name, you have to use a brand new domain, then it does make sense to buy an expired domain, even if it was never used, and redirect that domain with that 1990s or 2002 date, redirect that to that brand new domain. And so that age, if you will, or some of those factors will actually be combined. And so with that brand new domain, and what I've seen is it tends to get past some kind of this newness or sandbox or whatever you want to call it. It gets past some of those filters, if you will, that Google has, or biases that Google has against brand new domains. Okay, so that's I've been doing that for years and years. Like I said, if there's a brand new domain that that you have to use that particular new domain.
When you're buying, how much importance do you put on relevancy? And
it kind of depends. I mean, it depends on what I'm using it for. If it's a local SEO client, or if it's a site that that basically I look at the link profile and I need some more links on a certain topic, or I need some certain anchor text links. I will really make sure that it's on topic. That basically, if it's an example would be a real estate agent site, and they don't have enough links in the anchor text that have real estate in it, or realtor, or something like that. We'll go buy old real estate domains that that and sites like that, and redirect those, because we need the profile is there, but it just needs some more help.
right.
So the other consideration is just expired domains, just for traffic, just to buy a domain that will have type in traffic that you can literally just park and make $200 a month with basically a parts domain. I've got domains that I have bought as a expired domain back in 2004, 2005, that just it's a hyphenated domain, and there's no type in traffic, but it still has links and it has traffic through those links. And that's enough. That traffic is enough that it's just always been a parts page. And every year it makes, $10 a month. And I just continue to renew it, because as a parts page, it just has that traffic, and I've never developed it. So there's different reasons, to buy. And then there's the whole flipping. Right now you can buy any city city name, attorney.com or lawyer.com, phoenixlawyer.com, or phoenixattorney.com, or even the smaller cities. Those are easily flipped. I mean, literally, you can buy them for $20, and within an hour, you can have them sold for $1,000. So I've done that time and time again, over the years. So, that you could just spend all your day just buying those and doing some outreach and flipping them. The way I do that, obviously, find the domain, and basically, if some of the research, if you're just doing for flipping, then basically you will do a search for the keyword. If it's Phoenix Lawyer, well, just make sure that people are buying PPC ads. If there's PPC ads for that keyword, they would probably buy the domain. And you just contact the people who are paying for PPC for for Phoenix Lawyer and say, hey, I've got this domain, and ask them if they want to buy it.
Right. So, folks, we got 10 more minutes. If you have any questions for Bill, me or Ted, drop them in the chat. A follow-up to your statement on transferring an expired domain to a brand new domain, helping you get out of that sandbox. I know you've seen it. You wouldn't say it if you haven't seen it in the live. But how do we test that? And Ted, maybe you have some ideas. Well, how do we test that to verify that that's what it's actually doing?
So what Bill's talking about, this newness issue, this sandbox, and I know that people all around the internet say there's no sandbox. The term sandbox is being used to describe a behavior. And that behavior is, when does a new domain name start to get credit for its backlinks? And I know a lot of people say that the link operator in Google is worthless, but it's actually not. It's diagnostic. It's not a representative sample, but it tells you a piece of information. And that piece of information is, when you do the link operator on your domain, do you get 0 links or non-zero links? And so the sandbox is, how much time does it take for your new domain to go from 0 links to non-zero links? And we've seen that in the past take as long as 10 months for a new website to get credit for its backlinks. Now, my understanding is that that's been getting shorter and shorter over the years, and I haven't looked into it recently. But when Bill mentioned newness and the sandbox, he's talking about that credit for the backlinks. And so this whole idea of buying the auction, or buying the domain at auction and getting the seamless transfer without the expiration, is supposed to prevent you from entering into that new domain sandbox where you don't get credit for your backlinks for a long, long time.
I think the latest test that I've seen was done by Matt Diggity, and he was averaging 60 days from his expireds to actually being useful again. So I think it's an interesting test. I would, when you're talking about the single variable environment, though, I kind of have a hard time picturing how to pull that off, other than buying 5 test domains, optimizing one page on each of those for the same keyword, and then doing
run backlinks to your new domains and measure how long it takes for them to show up, any of them, into the link operator search results.
And when you're saying, is it in URL, or what's the link operator that you're referring to?
link:digitalear.com, and then put in, see what comes up. And on a new domain, it from an expired one that Google detected, it'll be 0. And so even if you do your link building for a long time, those won't show up. So the question is how long does it take for your new domain to get any credit at all for backlinks?
Okay.
And when you buy an expired domain, and let's say you're starting a blog, like we talked about earlier, and how most people quit those blogs, if you're not waiting until you get credit for your backlinks, you haven't even seen the effects of your SEO, and you're already giving up. And so monitoring this is important, because at one point in the past, Google had leaked that some ridiculous number, like 90% of web spammers give up within 10 months. And for a long time, that sandbox where you don't get credit for your backlinks was set to that give up point. It's psychology. And so that's why all those, mommy bloggers quit way too soon, because they never even get to the point where their SEO matters.
And it's 60 days now because we have even less patience than we did before. Bill, there's no questions. Hopefully they're saving them all for your AMA, which is what we wanted to do in the first place. In your SIA presentation, you showed a site that helped you determine if a domain has got traffic before you buy it. Do you mind showing that, or is that a little overreaching?
I'm trying to see. I'm trying to remember what you were referring to.
Yeah, it showed the DNS traffic. I wish I remember the name of it.
Yes, it's actually a tool that from VeriSign.
VeriSign, there you go.
Yes, that shows, and I'm trying to remember the URL of that. I'd have to look up and book. But basically, what they want to, they show the DNS traffic to that and the number of DNS lookups to that particular domain.
Domain scope.
Yes, domain scope.
Yeah.
And yes, it is. It's the DNS number of DNS lookups. So in my case, I have. It's been a little while since I've done that. You can. There actually is an API. So if you're enterprising, you could hook up to that API and literally find domains with traffic that way. And basically, it comes down to the only issue is that the keyword you're looking for needs to be in the domain. So if you're looking for an SEO related or digital marketing domain, then you won't find stuff like Hartzer.com because digital marketing or SEO is not in there. But especially if for local searches and so forth, you could definitely find that. Some of it also can be traffic from it's all DNS traffic, all DNS lookups. So if you keep in mind, and some of that traffic could be from stuff like Heartbleed and some virus related traffic. But so it's all DNS lookups that have happened for that particular domain. But it is you can sort, and you can not necessarily sort by relevance, but you can sort it by, I believe, by traffic also.
Yeah.
And so, it looks like since I last looked at it, they have added inbound links. I'm not sure where they're pulling those inbound link data from. But this is actually a really good source.
Yeah, I haven't seen that populated in a lot of the searches that I use it for. And basically, if you guys don't understand what Bill was showing us is that use the DNS to see if the domain, the server was getting pinged, right? Is basically what the DNS does.
Yeah. So basically, if something or somebody actually, somewhere looked up that particular domain, and a lot of cases, the servers, since it's an expired domain, the servers aren't, won't resolve anymore. But the idea is that there is something wanting to request that domain, whether it's a search engine bot or whether it's somebody actually trying to type it in.
Okay. And then you can, so this would be like if I had a plumbing site, I'd buy Denham's Plumbing. My domain is brand new. This one has DNS traffic, redirect it to my brand new domain. And the theory is that it will shorten that sandbox period.
Well, these are actually domains that are recently expired. Okay. So that are .com or .net, which VeriSign is a registry for .com and .net. And so this would be actually different because I don't think that, these are domains that have actually gone through that 90-day period that they've expired. So the domains are not probably in Google anymore. They've been removed. You'd want a domain that is from a GoDaddy auction or from like a Namejet auction or Snap Names, which are basically domains that you get before they actually drop.
Okay. All right. So this is more if you want to not compete with the auction space.
So I didn't mention, basically you can easily revive a domain. The difference is that even with the links, basically the only difference is from a one that you get on the pre-release, like GoDaddy auctions, and the ones that actually continue to drop. all you would really need to do is take that denimsplumbing.com and put up a landing page on it. And I like to let it sit for 30 to 60 days and, and get it back into, get it back indexed again. And, at that point, after it's indexed, and you could point some new links to it, but you'd want to basically give it some time to get indexed again, and then you would take advantage of redirecting. So that's really the only difference is if it completely expired or whether it's a domain from the pre-release.
Okay.
So that the Sandbox issue, I would get a pre-release domain.
Okay. That makes sense. Here's a good one for you, Ted. Hotmomfatloss.com. It's available.
Yeah, and it actually has, I believe that's the past 7 days or the past 30 days that the DNS lookup traffic. 1,000 searches, 1,007 searches, something like that.
Yeah, that's not bad. Prior 24-hour period, so that's what it says in the info.
Yeah, I have seen some domains there that the prior 24-hour period has been as high as 900,000, close to 1 million from those expired domains.
Have you
domains there?
Have you seen, like, I've bought some on there, and it says that it has the numbers on it, but then when you put it onto, you redirect it, for example, you don't necessarily see traffic in a traditional way like GoDaddy or, analytics. Is that where something you want to verify in the server logs, or you not even worry about it?
Yeah, you can. I've hit home runs there, and sometimes I have not. Keep in mind, it also could be mail traffic, also, or email traffic. So any expired domain, at a minimum, you would want to set up a default so that any mail at that domain is forwarded to maybe a Gmail account, so that you can see the Gmail or the mail traffic, email traffic.
Right.
So it could be actually email traffic also for lookups on that.
It'd be cool if that's like a built-in list. Just reply to all.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, there's no more questions, so hopefully they're all going over to the Reddit and hitting your AMA. I appreciate you, Bill, taking the time to come on. Again, you do the weekly talks for SIA. You're a majestic brand ambassador. You have BillHartzer.com. Are there any other ways people can reach you to ask more questions, maybe learn some more about domains, etc.?
Yeah, just look up my name in Google, and I'm happy to help anybody who reaches out.
He's famous, folks. He's got his own knowledge, guys. Ted, you got anything for us in our parting? What are we talking about tomorrow for SEO Fight Club?
Well, the cat's out of the bag. Tomorrow we're talking about the Google update. So we're going to show some data. We're going to talk about updates in general. We're going to talk about past updates. So if you've been asking me for answers, tomorrow's the day.
Sweet. Are we going to show data, or are we going to go with things we're going to test? Here's our hypothesis, and let's test that stuff.
We're going to show some data.
Okay.
We're going to talk about some theories. We always do, but we're also going to show some data too.
Perfect. Good. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. This is episode 111 of SEO This Week. Thank you very much for coming. We'll see you tomorrow on SEO Fight Club.